This little light of mine, it sits in a Nadi chakra. This little light of mine, it sits in a Nadi chakra. This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. It glows in our heart. This little light of mine, it glows in our heart. This little light of mine, it glows in our heart. This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. It spreads in our Vishuddhi. This little light of mine, it spreads in our Vishuddhi. This little light of mine, it spreads in our Vishuddhi. This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. It opens our chakra. This little light of mine, it opens our chakra. This little light of mine, it opens our chakra. This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. It shines in our Sahasrara. This little light of mine, it shines in our Sahasrara. This little light of mine, it shines in our Sahasrara. This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And who makes it shine? This little light of mine. And who makes it, and who makes it shine? This light, who makes it shine? This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Readings and a dance. And then we're still open to suggestions for contributions. If anyone has a budding talent, got some desire, something that they sort of, I've been waiting for years to have my opportunity, but the program's always so busy at Balmoral, but it's not busy tonight.
Wait, let me check. When I I'm checking if that's an actual stick. Then I'm checking if that's a stick.
Yeah, you don't have to
No, don't do that to mine.
Yeah, don't touch it, guys. Don't touch it, okay?
What did you know?
On this side, please. This side, this side.
Do not touch mine!
Something else.
Okay, so there's a very beautiful Marati song that Shri Mataji used to sing as a child, and given the discussion that took place after the Havan, And you know, the concerns that some people might have about where they stand in the world. This very beautiful song from the Marati hymn book. So we all know that Shri Mataji was born into a Christian family. So there's actually a Marati hymn book, and she learned quite a lot of the songs from that book as a child. So there's this very which I'm sure all of us know. I'll just go through the translation so that we know what we're singing about. When we belong to God, what is there to fear? We forget everything in the divinity, and we become completely lost in God. The world is grateful to Him for His blessings, but still He doesn't belong to the world because He is in a completely detached state. You may be without any outward wealth. The real treasure of wealth is inside yourself. All the diseases and problems get completely dissolved where the feet of God reside. And then again the chorus, when we belong to God, what is there to fear? And then there's a short question.
Couple seconds, sorry. Lose connection.
There's a short quote from Shri Mataji on the 4th of May in 1985. And she says, it's a very good song, which is something about the Sahaja Yogis. It means, the first one means the one who has God as his own, or her own. Such a person, why should they have any fear at all? The one who's all vani, or thought, all that has become one with God. For such a person, why should there be any fear of any kind? The one who is in this world moving about for the betterment of others, for such a person there are no more to have greater satisfaction. He may look to be a person who has no money, but he himself is the source of all the wealth. The one who is standing on top of the death, whose feet are on top of the death, on the top of all the hills, such a great personality. Why should you worry? Because God is your own, God belongs to you. And it is a very powerful song. It is all sung by new Sahaja Yogis. Long time back, it was sung by a great poet, and I think he's described you people. Why should you have any fear? And then Shri Mataji says, I don't have any fear, so it's not about me. He's telling you, why should you have any fear? When you have God with you, God is your own. Why should you have any fear? Why should you have any worries? That means if you are surrendered, there's nothing to worry about. Everything works out. We should use that as a mantra for the weekend. If you are surrendered, there's nothing to worry about. Everything works out. Jai Shri Mataji. Does everyone agree with that sentiment? Yes. So if you'd like to sing along, this is in Marati, page 4.
I'll wrap it down here.
a very beautiful song by Sahaja Yogis. A lot of us know this song, so please join in. This is on Marati, Hindi page 75. Can the ladies just check their mics? The ladies.
1, 2.
Jago, 1990 and 1991, Shri Mataji came to Australia for a tour in each year. 1990 she came for her birthday puja. 91 she came for Easter Puja. And each time Nirmala Sangeet Sarita, the band that was mentored by her brother Baba Mama, travelled with her around Australia. In 1992 she was also coming to Australia, and about a month before she arrived, she sent a message, Nirmala Sangeet Sarita were not to come to Australia, and we had to provide our own music. So you could say in a way that was the birth of musical joy, because we had the blessing of travelling with her around Australia and New Zealand. She presented 11 public programs, and there were 5 or 6 pujas also on that tour, so it was quite an extraordinary experience for those in the group who were part of that tour. We also celebrated the Shivratri Puja up near Newcastle, and in Brisbane she watched a film called Shiva Shakti, and in this film it's about a Shiva devotee who is in a situation like she's like Cinderella in a way. She has horrible in-laws, and they just treat her like a slave. She's in a very difficult position, but she never loses her faith in Sri Shiva. She's a great Shiva Bhakta. And there's the most extraordinary scene in that movie where she's basically been kicked into the gutter, and she's just muddy, her clothes are all muddy, and it's raining, and she's completely miserable in a way. But she just starts singing Om Namah Shiva, Om Namah Shiva, and then she has this most incredible vision of the gods in the heaven, and this song that we're about to sing, Chandra, is sung. And after that movie, Shri Mataji said, you should learn that song for Mahashivratri Puja. So for whatever reason, we were quite busy. I think it was back in the days where you had to hold a cassette player in front of the TV to record the song. Some of us remember those days. And we just didn't have the time during the tour to sit down and learn it. So only on the day of the puja we sat down for a couple of hours in the tent, listened to the cassette over and over again, and then learned the song. And during the puja, Shri Mataji requested the song twice on 2 occasions. And every time we'd get to the end of verse 3, this message would come, keep going, repeat, repeat. And I remember Uncle John Dobby had a new tape-to-tape copier. The old ones had the numbers that would just go around, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2. But he got this new fandangled one which was digital. So it actually gave the exact timing. And when one of the versions from the puja was edited, it came out to be 21 minutes and 21 seconds. Which, you go, like, who's controlling that? So this is Shankara Bole Bale. If you feel like dancing, is Mumty here? Does somebody want to go and get her? Because she's a good dancer. I'm sure there's other good dancers as well, but I suppose my point is, you can't keep her down. Page number Hindi 78. Lalat pe Chandrama, Chandrama, Jata mein Gangadhar hai, Gangadhar hai. Lalat pe Chandrama, Jata mein Gangadhar hai, Chadi hai asman pe, kere mein samahar hai. Shiva Do we know where the Dandiya sticks are? Okay. Oya Pamata Amata? Okay, so somebody said, when I said Marta, you got a yes. Everyone got sat down. So there's a new shift, next shift. All the men have to dance this time. Subhash, Hari.
Stick dancing champion.
Marati,
So now we have our Nepalese plus brothers and sisters singing a few songs. Okay, so just do a quick changeover.
Yeah, that was there. That's fine. Down. Keep going down. Where? Oh, yeah, you have Okay, so which one am I plugging into?
I'm the background chorus singer.
We are also chorus. You busy lyric मलाई Hello.
Okay, yeah, okay, okay, then can I leave you to do the sound then? Don't worry, this is fine. This sound. Okay, thank you.
That is mine. Oh my god. Give one of the mic to give one of the mic to
No, it's okay. Everyone will
Oh, I didn't like mine. Okay, mine.
Hello. Hello.
ए हुन्छ होइन
मेरो बेसुरा आउँछ म
आउँदैन
हाम्रो टाढा राख्छु नि त ल
यस्तो गर्नु न कस्तो बनाऊ तिम्रो बेसी राम्रो गरेर गर्नु चले हा तिम्रो पस्न
So now we have our Nepalese plus group,
Plus group. Multicultural group.
multicultural. So Nepalese and Indian.
Yes.
And anything else?
Sahaja Yogis.
Sahaja Yogis, of course.
सर न तिम्रो माइक मिलाउनु पर्छ आई थिंक
So we have Alina, Sabina,
ल भयो भयो भयो
Sarana, Srijana, Pratham, and Vijay.
And Rohan and Purva.
Okay, very good.
ठाडो भयो
Rohan and
Sean and Nira. Sean and Nira.
Sean as well.
And Nira as well.
And Nira. Okay.
वेज अपर्ना
The group just keeps every time
Keeps-
we open
yeah.
the groups go bigger.
Yes.
So
अपर्ना
they're
बस
going to
बोलाउँदा
sing Asha, Vishwa, and maybe Vijay will give a little explanation about this song.
सिटाउन सिटाउन
Correct? And a Param.
हेलो हेलो
नभए सेटल होस् न फोनै छ न
Mama ji.
check
Video.
check
पहले video तो काटा.
check
Check.
हेलो 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 हेलो
Mother phone dead.
and the boys in
Can you give your phone?
the boys the busy as well
हेलो
नाही ओपनच करून दिलेले 1407 86.
You know what? You're on air.
hello
YouTuber live.
हेलो
वॉल्यूम बढ़ाउनु पर्यो भर्खर बढा
हेलो
Mouth sing. Lip sync.
Hello. Mic check.
मामाजी
तिकडनं समोर बघ.
यहाँ राख्ने ल बिकज त्यहाँ राख्नु त्यहाँ
Turn that mic off. Turn that mic off.
तुम आशा विश्वास हमारे तुम धरती आकाश हमारे तुम आशा विश्वास हमारे तुम धरती आकाश हमारे तुम धरती आकाश हमारे माता तुम आशा विश्वास हमारे तुम धरती आकाश हमारे चैतन्य की लहरें बहती माँ तुमसे है ये कहती चैतन्य से हमें मिला दो मेरा सहारा तुम ही हो निर्मल भोली भाली मेरा सहारा तुम ही हो भक्तों की रखवाली मेरा सहारा तुम ही हो 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 You showed us how we can open our heart to love each other. You showed us how forgiveness can bring peace forever. Our commitment to you, Shri Mataji Nirmala. Reasons forever, Shri Mataji Nirmala. La 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 la
Hey, hey.
la 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 la
Ho, ho.
la 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 la. Like every child has a duty to his mother, so do we glorious mom. To be responsible, full of confidence, that you'll be proud of us, mom.
We know
Your
your
heart
heart
feels
feels
with
with
joy
joy
when
when
we
we
surrender. Shri Mataji Nirmala. Love that we share with each other, Shri Mataji Nirmala. The heart of the world with your blessing, Shri Mataji Nirmala.
blessings from your mother, Shri Mata Nirmala Ma. La 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 la. Hey la 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 la. Ho ho la 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 la.
मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी, मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी, दीवानी 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 रे, दीवानी 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 रे, मैं दीवानी मैं दीवानी मैं दीवानी मैं दीवानी, दीवानी 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 दीवानी, माता की दीवानी रे, मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम है, दुनिया के अंजुमन में ओ दुनिया के अंजुमन में कायम मेरा भरम है, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम है, माता मेरी रंगीली ऐसा रंगा दिया है, ऐसा रंगा दिया है, ऐसा रंगा दिया है, मनवाए निर्मला से दिल जगमगा दिया है, दिल जगमगा दिया है, दिल जगमगा दिया है, दिल से मेरे रूही का पर्दा हटा दिया है, दिल से मेरे रूही का पर्दा हटा दिया है, अल्लाह और नबी से मुझको मिला दिया है, अल्लाह और नबी से मुझको मिला दिया है, ये माता की इनायत ये माता की नवाजिश, ये माता की इनायत ये माता की नवाजिश, दिल पर हुई है मेरे चैतन्य की ये बारिश, चैतन्य की ये बारिश, चैतन्य की ये बारिश, मंजिल पे मोक्ष की अब ओ मंजिल पे मोक्ष की अब पहुंचा मेरा कदम है, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम है, मेरी माता का करम है निर्मल माता का करम है, मेरी दीवानी माता की दीवानी रे, मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी, दीवानी माता की दीवानी रे, मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी रे, मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी, मैं तो दीवानी माता की दीवानी।
सब नाते
No, he took a video all for himself. No selfie mode.
Bro, he didn't start the video.
Like you got Mamaji, one job. One job. Press button, that's it.
Hey Nirmala.
I didn't see.
Too good बजाया. तो गुड गाना भी है. Very nice. Good job.
They are just getting
Good
thing.
job. Sridhana, good job. कल किट के very nice. कौन सा था?
Hey,
Yes, sir.
Nirmala.
चुप 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 सर.
Just start, just start.
Okay.
प्यार मोक्ष का आनंद है माँ, हे निर्मल माँ, हे निर्मल माँ, तेरा प्यार मोक्ष का आनंद है माँ.
पार्टी करते हैं. Let's go.
Sometimes come.
चलो पार्टी करते हैं.
And all the Sahaja Yogis go up onto the stage to take Shri Mataji's darshan. Thank you very much. Such beautiful singing. Very, very melodic and very sweet. So we now have a dance, and it's not the Nepalese dance. So the Nepalese probably got a shock then because they needed a gap. So it's a different dance. This is Shiva Tandav by Shital Gupta from Canberra. Where's Daddy? Where we should dance? Does she need the carpets moved or no? Okay. So they can be rolled up, the carpets. Could we get some assistance rolling up the carpets?
Play it. Just play it. Just. Too much up. A little bit down.
जटाटवी गलज्जल प्रवाह पावितस्थले कलेवलम्ब्य लम्बितां भुजंग तुंग मालिकान्तमड्डमड्डमड्डमन्निनादवड्डमर्वयं चकार चण्ड ताण्डवं तनोतु नः शिव शिवम् जटाकटाह सम्भ्रम भ्रमन्निलिम्प निर्झरी विलोल वीचि वल्लरी विराजमान मूर्धनि ढगड्ढगड्ढगज्ज्वलल्ललाट पट्ट पावके किशोर चन्द्रशेखरे रतिः प्रतिक्षणम् मम जटाभुजंग पिंगल स्फुरत् प्रणामणि प्रभा कदम्ब कुङ्कुमद्रव प्रलिप्त दिग्वधूमुखे मदान्त सिन्धुर स्फुरत्वगुत्तरीय मेदुरे मनो विनोदमद्भुतं बिभर्तु भूत भर्तरि सदा शिवं भजाम्यहं सदा शिवं भजाम्यहम् ॐ नमः शिवाय प्रफुल्लनीलपङ्कजप्रपञ्चकालिमप्रभावलम्बिकण्ठकन्दली रुचिप्रबद्धकन्धरं स्मरच्छिदं पुरच्छिदं भवच्छिदं मखच्छिदं गजच्छिदान्धकच्छिदं तमन्तकच्छिदं भजे अखर्व सर्वमङ्गलाकलाकदम्बमञ्जरी रसप्रवाहमाधुरी विजृम्भणा मधुव्रतं स्मरान्तकं पुरान्तकं भवान्तकं मखान्तकं गजान्तकान्धकान्तकं तमन्तकान्तकं भजे नित्यमेव मुक्तमुत्तमोत्तमं स्तवं पठन् स्मरन् ब्रुवन्नरो विशुद्धिनेति सन्ततं हरे गुरौ सुभक्तिमाशु याति नान्यथा गतिं विमोहनं हि देहिनां सुशङ्करस्य विमोहनं हि देहिनां सुशङ्करस्य विमोहनं हि देहिनां सुशङ्करस्य चिन्तनो
Thank you, Shita from Canberra Collectivity. Another round of applause, please. So those who are eagle-eyed might have noticed that somebody stuck in about 15 minutes ago. And we're very pleased to welcome back our beautiful slide guitarist, Briton. And he's going to play again for us tonight. And the tabla players are doing scissor, paper, rock at the moment.
काल कौन सा ये 58 है ना 58 वाला
58
ये अच्छा वाला ये भी तो 58 है
no this one is warm sound
this one is good
we can put two this one more bright this one more warm okay
warm
you want warm sound
We'll start with the ekta and then follow with the
Ekta.
Vilambi
ekta.
नहीं normal
Then you Tawara.
तीन तरह Hello, hello. Jai Shri Mataji. So now I'm going to play the raga Bhageshri, which is a back Agya raga. So I'm requesting everybody, please do keep your concentration or please do keep your attention at the back Agya. So it's a late evening raga and it's mainly on our Agya Chakra, back Agya Chakra. Thank you. Jai Shri Mataji.
with it. A bit of context, his string broke halfway through. I froze and I was like, oh, do I keep going? Do I stop? What do I do?
Jai Shri Mataji, thank you Ritamji, such a beautiful performance. And we'll be passing around a hat for Sean's chiropractic appointment on Monday.
Ice pack and cool, thank you.
So beautiful. There's something very special about that raga. You can really feel that the emotions of it, and then the incredible filigree, which makes you completely thoughtless. Very beautiful. Thank you. So we have a Nepalese dance, but it's 15 minutes away. So part of this evening was going to be some passages read from the author C.S. Lewis. So there's 4 of them, and I might read the first one now. It probably takes about 10 or 15 minutes. And then if we have time, we'll do the rest tonight. Vishnu is reading one of them. Chris from Canberra is reading another. And Madhuri is reading the last one. So I'll just get this out. So C.S. Lewis was an English writer, and a lot of us have probably heard of him from writing the Narnia books, 7 books. I was just reading a little bit about him the other day, and I think as a teenager he renounced religion. He became an atheist because he couldn't understand how there could be a God with all the pain and suffering that he saw around him. And then I think, I don't know exactly when it was, but he must have had a vision, a realization, and he then became a believer. But when you read his writings, he's so inspired, and the things that he's channeling or getting channeled through him are quite extraordinary. So the first passage is a description of the creation of a world, and it's from the first book of the Narnia series. And it's been edited a little bit to cut out some of the extraneous characters that don't really add a lot to the story. But the gist of it is that there are 2 young children, one is called Diggory and one is called Polly, and they've travelled with their untrustworthy uncle, who's called Uncle Andrew. And he has these 2 magic rings which allow them to jump from different worlds. So they've jumped into a land called Charn, which is a horrible, decaying, depressing world. And there they've met a witch called Jardis, and she's an awful woman, really evil. And as they try to escape Charn to go back to Earth, she grabs hold of them and she comes to Earth with them, and she wreaks havoc there. So they grab the rings to escape Earth, and she comes with them again, along with a horse rider, a cabbie rider. So back in the day when they had taxis, they were horses and carriages. So they have a horse and the rider as well, and they come into this brand new world. And this is the description that C.S. Lewis wrote. In the darkness, something was happening at last. A voice had begun to sing. It was very far away, and Diggory found it hard to decide from what direction it was coming. Sometimes it seemed to come from all directions at once. Sometimes he almost thought it was coming out of the earth beneath them. Its lower notes were deep enough to be the voice of the earth herself. There were no words, there was hardly even a tune, but it was beyond comparison, the most beautiful noise he had ever heard. It was so beautiful he could hardly bear it. The horse seemed to like it too. He gave the sort of whinny a horse would give if after years of being a cab horse, it found itself back in the old field where it had played as a foal and saw someone whom it remembered and loved coming across the field to bring it a lump of sugar. Then two wonders happened at the same moment. One was the voice. One was that the voice was suddenly joined by other voices, more voices than you could possibly count. They were in harmony with it, but far higher up the scale, cold, tingling, silvery voices. The second wonder was that blackness overhead all at once was blazing with stars. They didn't come out gently one by one as they do on a summer evening. One moment there had been nothing but darkness. Next moment, 1,000 points of lights leaped out, single stars, constellations and planets, brighter and bigger than any in our world. There were no clouds. The new stars and the new voices began at exactly the same time. If you had seen and heard it as Diggory did, you would have felt quite certain that it was the stars themselves which were singing, and that it was the first voice, the deep one, which had made them appear and made them sing. The voice on the earth was now louder and more triumphant, but the voices in the sky, after singing loudly for it for a time, began to get fainter. And now sometimes something else was happening. Far away and down near the horizon, the sky began to turn grey. A light wind, very fresh, began to stir. The sky in that one place grew slowly and steadily paler. You could see shapes of hills standing up, dark against it. All the time the voice went on singing. There was soon light enough for them to see one another's faces. The cabbie and the two children had open mouths and shining eyes. They were drinking in the sound, and they looked as if it reminded them of something. Uncle Andrew's mouth was open too, but not open with joy. He looked more as if his chin had simply dropped away from the rest of his face. His shoulders were stopped and his knees shook. He was not liking the voice. If he could have got away from it by creeping into a rat's hole, he would have done so. But the witch looked as if, in a way, she understood the music better than any of them. Her mouth was shut, her lips were pressed together, and her fists were clenched. Ever since the song began, she had felt this whole world was filled with a magic that was different from hers and stronger. She hated it. She would have smashed that whole world, or all worlds, to pieces, if it would stop that singing. The horse stood with its ears well forward and twitching. Every now and then it snorted and stamped the ground. It no longer looked like a tired old cab horse. You could now well believe that its father had been in battles. The eastern sky changed from white to pink and from pink to gold. The voice rose and rose till all the air was shaking with it, and just as it swelled to the mightiest and most glorious sound it had yet produced, the sun arose. Diggory had never seen such a sun. The sun above the ruins of Charm, that evil planet, had looked older than ours. This one looked younger. You could imagine that it laughed for joy as it came up, and as its beams shot across the land, the travellers could see that for the first time the sort of place they were in. It was a valley through which a broad, swift river wound its way, flowing eastward towards the sun. Southward there were mountains, northward there were lower hills.
But it was a valley of mere earth, rock and water. There was not a tree, not a bush, not a blade of grass to be seen. The earth was of many colours. They were fresh, hot and vivid. They made you feel excited until you saw the singer himself, and then you forgot everything else. It was a lion, huge, shaggy and bright. It stood facing the risen sun. Its mouth was wide open in song, and it was about 300 yards away. The lion was pacing to and fro upon that empty land and singing his new song. It was softer and more lilting than the song by which he had called up the stars and the sun, a gentle rippling music. And as he walked and sang, the valley grew green with grass. It spread out from the line like a pool. It ran up the sides of the little hills like a wave. In a few minutes, it was creeping up the lower slopes of the distant mountains, making that young world every moment softer. The light wind could now be heard ruffling the grass. Soon there were other things besides grass. The higher slopes grew dark with heather. Patches of rougher and more bristling green appeared in the valley. Diggory did not know what they were until one began coming up quite close to him. It was a little spiky thing that threw out dozens of arms and covered these arms with green and grew larger at the rate of about an inch every 2 seconds. There were dozens of these things all around him now. When they were nearly as tall as himself, he saw that what they were. Trees, he exclaimed. Before his eyes, the trees in front of him became a full-grown beech whose branches swayed gently above his head. They stood on cool green grass, sprinkled with daisies and buttercups. A little way off, along the riverbank, willows were growing. On the other side, tangles of flowering currant, lilac and rose and rhododendron closed them in. The horse was tearing up the delicious mouthfuls of new grass. All this time the lion's song and his stately prowl to and fro, backwards and forwards, was going on. What was rather alarming was that at each turn he came a little nearer. Polly, who's Diggory's sister, was finding the song more and more interesting because she thought she was beginning to see the connection between the music and the things that were happening. When a line of dark firs sprang up on a ridge about 100 yards away, she felt they were connected with a series of deep prolonged notes which the lion had sung a second before. When he burst into a rapid series of lighter notes, she was not surprised to see primroses suddenly appearing in every direction. Thus, with an unspeakable thrill, she felt quite certain that all the things that were coming, as she said, out of the lion's head. When you listened to his song, you heard the things he was making up. When you looked around you, you saw them. This was so exciting that she had no time to be afraid. But Diggory and the cabbie could not help feeling a bit nervous as each turn of the lion's walk brought him nearer. As for Uncle Andrew, his teeth were chattering, but his knees were shaking so that he could not run away. The lion passed them by, still singing, and the children followed him through what had become a thick wood. In a few minutes, Diggory came to the edge of the wood, and there he stopped. The lion was singing still, but now the song had changed once more. It was more like what we should call a tune, but it was also far wilder. It made you want to run and jump and climb. It made you want to shout. It made you want to rush at other people and either hug them or fight them. It made Diggory hot and red in the face. But what the song did to the humans was nothing compared to what it was doing to the country. Can you imagine a stretch of grassy land bubbling like the water in a pot? For that was really the best description of what was happening. In all directions it was swelling into humps. They were of different sizes, some no bigger than molehills, some as big as wheelbarrows, two the size of cottages, and the humps moved and swelled till they burst, and the crumbled earth poured out of them, and from each hump there came out an animal. The moles came out just as you might see a mole come out in England. The dogs came out barking the moment their head were free, and struggling, as you've seen them do when they are getting through a narrow hole in a hedge. The stags were the strangest to watch, for of course the antlers came out first, and then the rest of them, so at first Diggory thought they were trees. The frogs who all came up near the river went straight into it with a plop plop and loud croaking. The panthers, leopards, and things of that sort sat down at once to wash the loose earth off their hindquarters, and then stood up against the trees to sharpen their front claws. Showers of birds came out of the trees, butterflies fluttered, bees got to work on the flowers as if they hadn't a second to lose. But the greatest moment of all was when the biggest hump broke like a small earthquake, and out of the sloping back, the large wise head and the 4 baggy leg trousers of an elephant. And now you could hardly hear the song of a lion. There was so much cawing, cooing, crowing, braying, neighing, baying, barking, lowing, bleating and trumpeting. But though Diggory could no longer see the lion, but now that Diggory could no longer hear the lion, he could still see it. It was so big and so bright that he could not take his eyes off it. The other animals did not appear to be afraid of it. Indeed, at that very moment, Diggory heard the sounds of hoofs behind him. A second later, the old cab horse trotted past him and joined the other beasts. And now, for the first time, the lion was quite silent. He was going to and fro among the animals, and every now and then he would go up and down, up to 2 of them, always 2 at a time, and touch their noses with his nose. He would touch 2 beavers among all the beavers, 2 leopards among all the leopards, 1 stag and 1 deer among all the deer, and leave the rest. Some sorts of animals he passed over altogether, but the pairs which he touched instantly left their own kinds and followed him. At last he stood still, and all the creatures whom he had touched came and stood in a wide circle around him. The others whom he had not touched began to wander away. Their noises faded gradually into the distance. The chosen beasts who remained were now utterly silent, all with their eyes fixed intently upon the lion. The cat-like ones gave an occasional twitch of the tail, but otherwise all were still. For the first time that day, there was complete silence, except for the noise of the running water. Diggory's heart beat wildly. He knew something very solemn was going to be done. The lion, whose eyes never blinked, stared at the animals as hard as if he was going to burn them up with his mere stare. And gradually a change came over them. The smaller ones, the rabbits, moles, and such like, grew a good deal larger. The very big ones, you noticed at most with the elephants, grew a little smaller. Many animals sat up on their hind legs. Most put their heads on one side as if they were trying very hard to understand. The lion opened his mouth, but no sound came from it. He was breathing out a long, warm breath. It seemed to sway all the beasts as the wind sways a line of trees. Far overhead from beyond the veil of blue sky which hid them, the stars sang again, a pure, cold, difficult music. Then there came a swift flash like fire, but it burnt nobody, either from the sky or from the lion itself, and every drop of blood tingled in the children's bodies, and the deepest, wildest voice they had ever heard was saying, "Narnia, Narnia, Narnia, awake, love, think, speak, be walking trees, be talking beasts, be divine waters." It was as though it was, of course, the lion's voice. The children had long felt that he could speak, yet it was a lovely and terrible shock when he did. Out of the trees, wild people stepped forth, gods and goddesses of the wood. With them came fauns and satyrs and dwarves. Out of the river rose the river god and his naiad daughters, and all of these and all the beasts and birds in their different voices, low or high, thick or clear, replied, "Hail, Aslan, we hear and obey, we are awake, we love, we think, we speak, we know. Creatures, I give you yourselves," said the strong, happy voice of Aslan. I give to you forever this land of Narnia. I give you the woods, the fruits, the rivers. I give you the stars, and I give you myself. The dumb beasts who I have not chosen are yours also. Treat them gently and cherish them, but do not go back to their ways, lest you cease to be talking beasts. For out of them you were taken, and into them you can return. Do not so. And that's the end of that section. Okay, Nepalese dance. Complete change of pace.
Shri Mataji, before we start the dance, I want to give some context. So the song Ambabai Gondralaye is a powerful Marati devotional song from a Bollywood movie. It is inspired by the traditional folk ritual called Gondal, where devotees sing and dance to invoke the goddess for protection and blessing. Today our Nepalese sisters, along with me and Vijay, will be performing a dance to this energetic and spiritual song. Thank you. That's how we realize. That's how we real sense.
अगधावा खाई खाई दैत्य मातला अनसंपुदेत काळ दुष्ट बंधनातला अगधावा खाई खाई दैत्य मातला अनसंपुदेत काळ दुष्ट बंधनातला हाता त्रिशूळ तू हातात आई घे बळतेच आज संबळाला दे आम्ही अंबाबाई गोंधळाला गे आम्ही अंबाबाई गोंधळाला गे तुळजा भवानी गोंधळाला गे आणि काळूबाई गोंधळाला गे रात सरली काळी गे उभी पाठीशी जगदंबा आई संकटातून तारे तुझे उधळून येणार आई गोंधळाला येणार तुझा मन लागला गोंधळ मांडला आज गोंधळाला ये आई गोंधळाला 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 ये अंगार जो तुझ्या अंगार जो तुझ्या नजरेत पेटला आणि तीच आग संबळाला दे अगं अंबाबाई गोंधळाला ये हे अंबाबा तुळजा भवानी गोंधळाला ये
We do have a tradition here at Easter Puja that the dance is always done twice. And since it's the only dance we've got, group dance, maybe they need to do 3 times. But twice at least. अगधाव आई ठाई ठाई दैत्य मातला अन संपू देत काळ दुष्ट बंधनातला अगधाव आई ठाई ठाई दैत्य मातला अन संपू देत काळ दुष्ट बंधनातला आता त्रिशूळ तू हातात आई घे बळतेच आज संबळाला दे अन अंबाबाई गोंधळाला ये अन अंबाबाई गोंधळाला ये तुळजा भवानी गोंधळाला ये अन काळूबाई गोंधळाला ये रात सरली काळी गे उभी पाठीशी जगदंबा आई संकटातून तार तुझे उघडून येणार आई गोंधळाला येणार तुझा मनला दरबार तुझ्या दिवटीचा ग चाळ झाला दुर्जनांचा काळ आता तूच ग सांभाळ आई गोंधळ मांडला आज गोंधळाला ये आई गोंधळाला 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 ये अंगार जो तुझ्या अंगार जो तुझ्या नजरेत पेटला आणि तीच आग संबळाला दे अगं अंबाबाई गोंधळाला ये हे अंबाबाई गोंधळाला ये तुळजा भवानी गोंधळाला ये अगं काळूबाई गोंधळाला ये Okay, so the only things left are the other 3 readings, and I promise you they're not as long as the one. No, it's didn't realise how long it was. So the next one, if Chris is still here. So the next one is from the last of the Narnia books, and this is quite amazing because it shows characters who are completely blinkered, and even though the truth is in front of them, they cannot recognise it. And Aslan features as well, and it's quite sad and comical at the same time, this passage. So.
This part of the narration is entitled The Last Battle, the dwarfs, from chapter 13, How the Dwarfs Refused to be Taken in. I hope Tash ate the dwarfs too, said Eustace. Little swine. No, he didn't, said Lucy. Oh, don't be so horrid. They're still here. In fact, you can see them from here. And I've tried and tried to make friends with them, but it's no use. Friends with them? Cried Eustace. If you knew how those dwarfs have been behaving... Oh, stop it, Eustace, said Lucy. Do come and see them. King Param, perhaps you could do something with them. I can feel no great love for dwarfs today, said Param. Yet, at your asking, lady, I would do a greater thing than this. Lucy led the way, and soon they could all see the dwarfs. They had a very odd look. They weren't strolling about or enjoying themselves, although the cords with which they had been tied seemed to have vanished. Nor were they lying down and having a rest. They were sitting very close together in a little circle facing one another. They never looked round or took any notice of the humans until Lucy and Tyrion were almost near enough to touch them. Then the dwarfs all cocked their heads as if they couldn't see anyone, but were listening hard and trying to guess by the sound what was happening. Look out, said one of them in a surly voice. Mind where you're going. Don't walk into our faces. All right, said Euston indignantly. We're not blind. We've got eyes in our heads. They must be darn good ones if you can see and hear, said the same dwarf whose name was Diggle. In where? Asked Edmund. Why, you bonehead. In here, of course, said Diggle. In this pitch-black, poky, smelly little hole of a stable. Are you blind? Said Tyrion. Ain't we all blind in the dark? Said Diggle. But it isn't dark, you poor stupid dwarfs, said Lucy. Can't you see? Look up. Look around. Can't you see the sky and the trees and the flowers? Can't you see me? How in the name of all humbug can I see what ain't there? And how can I see you in any more than you can see me in this pitch darkness? But I can see you, said Lucy. I'll prove I can see you. You've got a pipe in your mouth. Anyone knows the smell of baccy could tell that, said Diggy. Oh, the poor things. This is dreadful, said Lucy. Then she had an idea. She stopped and picked some wild violets
Listen, dwarf, she said. Even if your eyes are wrong, perhaps your nose is all right. Can you smell that? She leaned across and held the fresh, damp flowers to Diggle's ugly nose. But she had to jump back quickly in order to avoid the blow from his hard little fist. None of that, he shouted. How dare you? What do you mean by shoving a lot of filthy, stable litter in my face? There was a thistle in it too. It's like your sauce. And who are you anyway? Earthman, said Tyrion, she is the Queen Lucy, sent hither by Aslan, out of the deep past. And it is for her sake alone that I, Tyrion, your lawful king, do not cut all your heads from your shoulders. Proved and twice proved traitors that you are. Well, if that doesn't beat everything, exclaimed Diggle. How can you go on talking all that rot? Your wonderful lion didn't come here and help you, did he? Thought not. And now, even now, when you are being beaten and shoved into this black hole, just the same as the rest of us, you're still at your old game, starting a new lie, trying to make us believe we're none of us. Shut up, and it ain't dark and heaven knows what. There is no black hole, save in your own fancy, fool, cried Tyrion. Come out of it! And leaning forward, he caught Diggle by the belt and the hood and swung him right out of the circle of dwarfs. But the moment Tyrion put him down, Diggle darted back to his place, among the others, rubbing his nose and howling, Ow! Ow! What do you think you'd do that for? Banging my face against the wall, you nearly broke my nose. Oh dear, said Lucy. What are we going to do with them? Let them alone, said Eustace. But as he spoke, the earth trembled. The sweet air grew suddenly sweeter. A brightness flashed behind them. All turned. Tyrion turned last because he was afraid. There stood his heart's desire, huge and real, the golden lion, Aslan himself. And already the others were kneeling in a circle round his forepaws and burying their heads and faces in his mane as he stooped his great head to touch them with his tongue. Then he fixed his eyes on Tyrion, and Tyrion came near him trembling and flung himself at the lion's feet, and the lion kissed him and said, Well done, last of the kings of Narnia, who stood firm at the darkest hour. Aslan, said Lucy through her tears, could you, will you, do something for these poor dwarfs? Dearest, said Aslan, I will show you both what I can and what I cannot do. He came close to the dwarfs and gave a low growl, low, but it set all the air shaking. But the dwarfs said to one another, Hear that? That's the gang at the end of the stable, trying to frighten us. They do it with a machine of some kind. Don't take any notice. They won't take us in again. Aslan raised his head and shook his mane. Instantly, a glorious feast appeared on the dwarf's knees. Pies and tongues and pigeons and trifles and ices, and every dwarf had a goblet of good wine in his right hand. But it wasn't much use. They began eating and drinking greedily enough, but it was clear that they couldn't taste it properly. They thought they were eating and drinking only the sort of things you might find in a stable. One said he was trying to eat hay, and another said he had a bit of old turnip, and a third said he found a raw cabbage leaf. And they raised golden goblets of rich red wine to the lips and said, "Ah, fancy drinking dirty water out of the trough that a donkey's been at. Never thought we'd come to this." But very soon, every dwarf began suspecting every other dwarf had found something nicer than he had. And they started grabbing and snatching and went on to quarrelling, till in a few minutes there was a free fight, and all the good food was smeared on their faces and clothes or trodden underfoot. But when at last they sat down to nurse their black eyes and their bleeding noses, they all said, "Well, at any rate, there's no humbug here. We haven't let anyone take us in. The dwarfs are for the dwarfs." "You see," said Aslan, "they will not let us help them. They have chosen cunning instead of belief. Their prison is only their own minds, yet they are that prison, and so afraid of being taken in that they cannot be taken out. But come, children, I have other work to do."
So, for those who are still here, you're allowed to come for meditation at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, but everyone else who's already in bed will come at 6:30. So just decide which one you're coming for. Maybe somewhere in between. I don't know if Dr. Nayana knows about that. And Jai Shri Mataji to all our brothers and sisters watching online. Thank you for adding your vibrations to the evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Mataji.